I think there's a real case to be made for never really being self-conscious, and specifically not to be conscious of your flaws or your weaknesses, to only have a mind that runs along your strengths and that amplifies them and that sort of circulates around them and builds and sort of selects the challenges in your life based on your strengths and not so much your weaknesses, and to only think of your strengths and to in fact grow the variety of strengths that you have and never really acknowledge the weaknesses. It's sort of a, I would say it's sort of a southpaw way of being, because a lot of the times you hear this sort of rhetoric, and I've heard this rhetoric from a lot of people that I know personally about, oh, you can't compete where you can't compare, which is true. That has a level of truth to it. And to sort of acknowledge where your weak points are and sort of tally things up. But I would really argue that the people that win, the people that really have cult-like audiences, cult-like fan bases that reach massive explosive levels of success, they don't just take note of the weaknesses and go towards their strength. They completely write off their weaknesses like they're not even there, and they only acknowledge and buffer and move around and sort of, how do you say, exaggerate their strengths, and they move entirely around the things that make them win and around the things that make them better. You look at that Trump mindset, you look at a lot of the winner politicians, you look at anybody who is magnetic, anybody who has that star power, they're not people that are really talking about the things that don't make them good. They're people that are simply living the things that do make them good, the things that make them better than the competition, the things that make them better than you. And you see that anybody that has less star power or is less magnetic or is less noteworthy in any way that you can really think of, these are people that are always hyper fixated on the things about them that are unworthy, on the things about them that have not met whatever standard they reach in their head. And you realize, you think, okay, so if these people are always thinking about their weaknesses and they're always thinking about the things that don't make them good enough, is it that the winners are just good enough, that they have made that they have all the strength for them to acknowledge that they're good enough? No, and that's never the case. And the more that you sort of study the people that win, the more you realize they don't really have any more weaknesses than you do. They just never acknowledge them. They just never think about them. They just never... that doesn't ever enter their sphere of thinking. But you with a critical mind, me with a critical mind, we look at these people and you dissect them and you go, oh, but he's not so good at this. Oh, but he's not so good at this. Oh, but they're not thinking about that. They're just making the shit that makes them, they're just doing the shit that makes them better than you or better than the next guy or whatever. And to the extent that anybody might have weaknesses, they work on that shit in silence, and they don't ever speak that out loud. They don't ever, and it's just, it's so counterproductive and counterintuitive. Maybe not counterintuitive, but definitely counterproductive to be sitting there and thinking about the things that make you worse than the competition, thinking about the things that make you less than. Because it's like I said in another video, there's a guy out there that's a lot worse than you at what you're good at, but he's winning. He's beating you at what you're good at because he's not thinking about the things that make him bad. He's dead focused on the things that make him good, and his whole internal world is focused around the things that make him good. It's focused around the things that make him better than the competition. And he moves entirely around that. He thinks only of that, and he lives only in that and internal, and he dreams only about his successes, only about his wins. He's Marty Supreme in that motherfucker. You know what I mean? It takes so much more energy to battle your weak, negative, destructive, sort of corrosive beliefs and traits. It's really beliefs and thoughts about yourself. It takes way more energy to battle those than it does to simply go all in on your strengths, to only acknowledge your strengths, to live within your strengths, and to grow, to have this mindset that in fact I have no weakness. In fact, I'm really him. You know what I mean? And not in an ignorant way, but in a strategic way. Not in the way where like you don't see the parts of you that can be exploited, but the part of you that simply believes that you are above anything that could take you down. But in a confident way, in a strategic way, in a way where like you see the whole picture, but you only decide to reinforce the things that allow you to win. I can't imagine anybody, like I can't imagine any major historic figure, political figure, how do you say, entertainment figure, celebrity, anybody, creative or otherwise, that won, people that I know personally, people in my own life that win, that continue to win, that have an image about them that is greater, that is grander. People that really win, people that are different, that are out of the norm, that are extraordinary, like statistically speaking, in the way that they succeed, in the way that people perceive them, in the way that they move through the workplace and their life and their career. These people don't have high levels of self-consciousness. In fact, I would say they have very low levels of self-consciousness. And so I believe this is a skill that you can work out of yourself, but I think the importance of it really can't be overstated. Like I said, there's people really winning out there that you should be beating, that you should really be beating, but you're not, because you're dead focused on the things that make you not good enough. You are brilliant. There's something about you that makes you brilliant, and if you don't believe that, then you don't deserve what you want to begin with. But there is something about you that makes you different. There's something about you that makes you unique. You have a unique combination of traits and perspectives and life experiences that probably no human has ever had, because you know what I mean? It's like a lot of people are the same in an external, like surface level way, but in the deepest analysis, you're always going to be one of one, always. And you should always invest in that, because the people that become stars are the people that just accentuate the things that make them different to begin with, and the people that highlight those things rather than hide those things. If you're brilliant, and I would hope that if you're watching something like this, that you are brilliant. If you're brilliant, as I am brilliant, as many people are brilliant, and oftentimes the most brilliant people are the most self-destructive. The most brilliant people are so brilliant that they realize the things that make them insufficient much more than people that don't realize. This is why ignorance is bliss, because people that really technically are not that talented or skilled or different or noteworthy become that way, because they don't have the self-consciousness and the limiting beliefs that make them move in a way that would be representative of that. But you and so many people, they are just like, it's like this weird self-masturbation of like self-loathing. It's like masturbation, self-loathing, where you sort of marinate in your own incompetence when there are things about you that really are different and that really are worth investing in. I think you really should completely reframe your internal and the way that you think about things and the way that you look at yourself and perceive yourself and perceive the world through your internal lens of yourself and your abilities, only really highlighting your strengths, because your strengths are real. And if it's a real strength, if you have like this one or two things about you that really sets you apart, don't underestimate that, and don't underestimate how much that can grow. And in fact, even if you want to underestimate it, don't even acknowledge it. Just realize that that is your strength. And don't ever downplay that. Don't ever make that seem like it's less than what it is. And I don't really care how it seems to you. It shouldn't ever matter how it seems to you. Because at the end of the day, what you think about you doesn't matter. It never did. It never did. What you think about yourself never mattered. it matters what other people think of you. And if you move with boldness, if you move with courage, if you think only of your strengths, if you speak of them, if you move in that, and if you have this sort of magneticism about you, this sort of destined to succeed mindset that's within you, you are destined. And people feel that, and they gravitate towards that, and they begin to support you. I know because people do that with me, because I really feel that way about me. But I realize that I even have had some of those flaws where you just find yourself constantly thinking about the things that aren't good enough, and you end up completely missing out on the things that make you brilliant, that make you completely unique, that make you one of one. And if you were more like those Trumpian people, more like those, how do you say it, like Zerkas or Eminem in his fucking prime, or any real star that you can think of, anybody that you really looked up to the extent that they might have had doubtful thoughts, they sort of completely either outwork that or just completely eliminated it from their mind. Because when you get up on the stage of life, because it's not just when you show up for the role, for the movie, for the song, for the job interview that you need to perform, although oftentimes this is the only times where we do perform. But it's not just that, and it shouldn't be just that. The time to perform is every time that you wake up. The stage of life is happening at all times, and you should always go in with that mindset, like it's a job interview, like it's like your big day, like the day to prove yourself. I know that me personally, when I get up on stage, or when I go to a job interview, or when I do whatever I do, it's like I'm the best presented version of myself. But you realize that that version of yourself should not only come out in those special moments. That should be the version of yourself that you channel every day. That should be the version of yourself every time you turn on that camera, every time you walk into work, every time you do anything. And it might seem exhausting, but you really want to cultivate your identity so that it is one of excellence, and it is one of somebody who is truly strong and truly competent and truly able. And so you can't do that if you're constantly marinating in your own self-image, if you're constantly like dwelling on that and sort of just stuck in these thought loops of things that, oh wow, that zoomed in, that was cool. And these thought loops of things that just don't serve you. They don't serve you, and they never did. And you would be way better off completely shifting your internal world and your internal perception of yourself entirely. Or like, if it helps you, don't even think of yourself outside of your strengths. Literally don't acknowledge anything about yourself outside of your strengths, unless it's to make tweaks, unless to edit. It's like, yo, I gotta clean up my facial hair, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Like, but outside of things like that, outside of the moments where it's really like necessary and appropriate, you shouldn't even be considering yourself. Because what the fuck does it matter what you think of you? Go out there and perform, my nigga. Go out there and perform. Go out there and be that version of you. Play to your strengths. Move in your strengths. Move in the things that make you brilliant, that make you exceptional. And if you can't think of anything, my guy, act like it. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you think of you. It never did. It never did. Go out there in the world and perform. Go out there in the world and perform. When you go out there, you are not you. Because what the fuck is you if you think you are ass? No, you're better off being something else, because sooner or later that becomes you. Because if you act that way, if you move that way, if people receive you in that way, is that not you? Is that not a version of you that you just didn't think you were? And so in a way, you come to realize that you can't even trust your thoughts about yourself. Because if you can move differently than what your thoughts are telling you, and then people start to receive you differently in a much more effective way, if people start to receive you and speak to you and treat you like you are somebody that is way more excellent, that is way more destined for success because you started to move that way, how is that not you? If it's producing the result of somebody that is like that, that is you. You were just so focused on your own weaknesses that you didn't even realize that was you. That was you. That is you. It always was. And so you realize that playing to your strengths and thinking only of your strengths and really only believing in yourself, it's not just a more effective way of being. In a way, it's a more accurate way of being. It's a more beautiful way of being. I literally think it's a more correct way of being, because if it works better for you, if it literally evolves you, if it literally gets you the results that you want, if it literally makes you better, and if the whole world is like, this is who this person is, and you think that you're not, look at the results. Don't really look at what you think about it, because what the fuck do you, like, hello? Like, who cares what you think about it? Who cares what you think about it? The results are there. And so you can do two things. You can either throw your thoughts away and just behave in that way, but then you're always going to have that internal misalignment, or you can align yourself internally to that. You can change the way that you think about the thing. You can create this new identity within yourself and then go out and perform like that, because that's going to play in your favor. That's going to play in your favor. And you know, this internal realignment, this changing of your internal habitat, this identity shifting, you end up becoming that person. And so you realize, again, to go back to the main topic, that playing to your strengths, that lacking of that self-consciousness, that realigning to something that's entirely like solid and impenetrable in a way, this is who you end up becoming. It's not just that you act. People say fake it till you make it, and then you'll forget you were ever faking, or things like that, right? And that's true, because what you're doing is initiating the process of becoming. And so who do you want to become? Because negative thoughts, because destructive thoughts, because pessimistic thoughts, because limiting thoughts, they reinforce an identity that is weak. They reinforce an identity that is not able. They reinforce something that is contrary to everything that you know you want. And so positive thoughts, and so thoughts of strength, of abundance, of capability, of limitlessness, these are effectively what you become. Thoughts of discipline, that is what you become. If you hold that in your thought and you just get rid of everything that's not aligned with that, everything, you just filter that out of the way. I like this motion. And you live in that, and you just filter everything out, and you just sort of like let that thought possess you, and remove any sense of self-consciousness that seeks to sort of rationalize or disprove, because that's what your mind is going to try to do. It's going to try to disprove. It's going to try to tell you that it's not true. It's going to try to tell you that it's not possible. It's going to try to tell you all of these different things, because that's what it's used to doing, because that's what the rational mind does, because it seeks to correct. It seeks to get right. And so you have to teach it that this is right. You have to teach it that thinking in your favor is right, and seeking to disprove things is not doing anything for you. So this is why you have to take control of the thinking process. This is why it's so important to take control of the thinking process, because you can just act. But if that internal alignment is not there, that friction is almost certainly going to be there forever. And that's what leads to imposter syndrome. And so there are some, like a great artist like Kanye is great. I thought he's a little washed now, unfortunately, but was great. Maybe I want to believe that he still has that in him, but anyway, that's a side thought. Someone like that is great, but actually believes it as well. He didn't just have this imposter syndrome, and to the extent that he did, he'd never let that take him over. To the extent that he was willing to crash out, he was willing to act wild, he was willing to do shit nobody else was willing to do. He was willing to say things nobody else was willing to say, just to say, yo, I'm really him. I'm really him. I'm really him. I'm really him. Nigga, I don't give a fuck. I'm really him. So, and he's actually kind of him. Like, if you really think, like, he's actually pretty fucking nice. So, it's possible, and in a way that magnifies you further, because you can be great. Like, for me, an artist that I like, kind of like a tangent, and then I'll wrap up the video, but just a sort of a side note, an artist that I really like, that I think is great, is Quadeca. But something about the way that he speaks in his interviews and this, that, and the third tells me that he has a lot of, like, he's clearly somebody that's very neurotic and like self-conscious is in his head. If he sort of bigged himself up a lot harder, he'd probably be a lot more popular because he really is that nice. And so how many people in your life, how many like people do you see that are genuinely great, that are genuinely brilliant, but are just lack the spine, lack the inner identity, lack the courage to claim it, to move in that way, to accentuate it, to exaggerate it even? Because I think in exaggerating it, you do make it greater. Because oftentimes the things that we make and the things that we do are a lot greater than the credit that we give them. And they are great, and they should be acknowledged as such. And nobody ever acknowledges their own greatness, but they will acknowledge yours. If you claim it boldly enough, if you say, yeah, I'm really like that, I'm really like that, I'm really nice, people will see that. And if they see you with that confidence and they see that they can't break that out of you, and nothing that they do is going to break that out of you, they will acknowledge it sooner or later. And if they don't, everybody else will. You know, and that's going to make you work harder too. That's going to make you move better too. That's going to make you perform harder every day as well. But yeah, I got to go to work. But yeah, don't acknowledge your own weaknesses, because in a way they're not even there. So yeah.